Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
And I'm Chris
And
Clements.
it has been a little while.
We're back.
We're back.
I can't believe it. You were actually there
I was there,
at the inauguration,
and it
but not in
no.
the halls of Congress, not in the rotunda.
It definitely changed the plans when, for security reasons,
Yes.
they took it inside.
Yes. So
I say that on purpose because they claimed it was cold. It was not that cold.
No,
I mean, it was cold it was cold, but it wasn't.
Comparatively speaking to other inaugurations, it was cold.
It
wasn't 7 degrees cold.
No, it
right?
wasn't 7 degrees cold, which is what it was when Reagan went inside in 1984 or 1985, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was probably about 4 or 5 degrees cooler than when Obama did 2008.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think everybody saw the tea leaves on that one, that for security reasons and for the upheaval that is currently happening in the government.
I mean,
take it inside.
I'd say this seriously because
protect Trump at all costs.
It is a serious issue, but the Secret Service is kind of in disarray. And they need to get their shit together because it was clear that there were threats and that they did not feel completely comfortable in protecting the president. Or protecting the crowd.
Yeah, or the populace, for that matter.
Who would come out. Now, the reason that I know it wasn't...
I heard from several liberals it was all had to do with crowd size. He wasn't going to get the crowds that he wanted, so they took it inside. I'm like,
whatever.
Okay. All right. Sure.
One thing I will say about Trump supporters, that the diehards, so they're extremely optimistic people.
Yes,
and I'll explain. There was a rally at Capital One Arena on Sunday, which then they did again on Monday.
Yes,
and so I got tickets to take my father-in-law to go. We went into town because we were staying out in Virginia for that night before. We get there and go to where the screening is supposed to be at 10th and H Street, and it's a jam-packed. I mean, the line goes. So we were like, okay, we'll go find the end of the line.
Yeah.
14 blocks later. And I'm not kidding. I drew it on the board to make sure I was counted. I thought it was 12, but I was describing it to Alex, and it was 14 blocks. So 10th and H, all the way down to 6th, down 6th to E, across E, back to 10th, and then up to F, back across F. I mean, that's insane.
Unbelievable.
And
when you can't go to the mall anymore, I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to try to get into the rally.
We go.
It's unbelievable.
I'm talking to people as we're going along, and I'm like, "Do you think you're going to get in?" Oh yeah, we're going to get in. And by that time, I'm like, we're 50,000 people in at least. It holds 22,000 people. So, and everyone
I would have thought you, the Prince of Dark Money, would have had some VIP.
I did not attempt any. I just did like the online ticket thing.
Okay.
I didn't want to talk to anybody.
You were there almost incognito.
Incognito, and
did you pass out any Light Beer Dark Money flyers to anybody in mind?
Well, I mean, that would have been
hey, listen to our podcast.
Can't afford that many flyers, but every one of them thought that they were going to get in, and then if they didn't, they were going to stay in line for the next day. And there were literally people, thousands of people who stayed overnight.
Yeah,
and it got cold at night. It was in the low teens,
and they were just going to stay there.
And they did. I mean, they weren't going to. They did stay there. They stayed all night long. I mean, there were thousands of people that stayed all night long.
Oh my goodness, it definitely is a cult of personality. There's no doubt about that.
So I thought, but
at least he's safe after 2 attempts on his life during the campaign, and anyone who could see, has half a brain knew that it was because of security.
Yeah,
and that's an indictment on the Secret Service, like you said. That's horrendous. That's not right.
No. Hopefully
But
they'll get
kudos
put
to,
together.
I mean, Mike Johnson and everybody at the Capitol for putting it together the way they did.
Yeah, I thought
mean,
it went great.
They had some glitches, obviously, but
the most pronounced glitch in my mind was John Roberts starting the oath before
for the
Trump,
Bible it showed up.
before
and
Trump
the family.
Before the family was. I mean, he's halfway into the oath by the time the family is lined up and stopped.
Well, I don't know. I think Carrie Underwood, going a cappella.
That wasn't a glitch. That was a freaking. That was awesome.
That was great, but it was kind of a glitch.
Well, I mean, it's the kind of thing. It's the kind of glitch where it's like you forget the glitch because how she pulled it off was just amazing.
Well, I mean, and the video of her saying, "I can sing it.
Yeah,
I can just sing it.
I can just sing it." Yes, you can.
And then everybody joined in.
Yeah, I thought she did.
What do you think about George W. with all his facial expressions?
I think George W. is having the time of his life when he gets to go to things like this and think, I don't have any responsibility whatsoever. I mean, just the lift of, I mean, you think about what his presidency was like with the 9/11, with the financial crisis, at the 9/11 at the beginning, the financial crisis at the end, and all of the things that happened in between. That guy was the most relieved person in the earth to not be president anymore. Yeah. And so he's living his best
thought
life.
It was great that he was there, and the little chest pump between he and Obama was funny.
Yeah.
You know who obviously did not want to be there? The Clintons. So they had a camera on them before they entered, and they looked miserable together. Completely miserable. And then when they were announced, they got all smiles.
Yep.
And then what nobody is talking about, which is just unbelievable to me, because it happened at one of the inaugurations, is I believe Ivanka Trump shows up and Bill gets his head on a swivel.
I mean, in 8 years ago at Trump's first inauguration, Hillary caught Bill gazing at Melania.
Yeah.
And then this time it was Ivanka.
Yeah. Just can't keep
Guy can't help himself.
Yeah. And she just shakes her head. The Bill Clinton overbite. Yeah. Alive and well.
That's right. That's right.
But they just obviously despise each other.
The person who was the most miserable was Kamala.
Yeah. Yeah, and the person who was out for blood was obviously Melania.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that wasn't an outfit. That was like a uniform.
That is the assassin's uniform.
Don't see the eyes. At first I was like, she looks like she's going to a funeral. She really did.
Well, she was.
She
was good. I mean, she made it very clear. She went to the death of the Democratic Party.
Well, and certainly Joe Biden
and Kamala Harris.
Yeah. Yeah. You think Joe knew where he was? I think he did.
Yeah.
I hope he did.
Yeah, I think he.
What do you think Barron said to him when he leaned over?
Well, what's happened on the internet is that people have said, they show this.
He was shaking. He shook his hand and he shook Kamala's hand.
So when he's talking to Kamala is when Biden's expression changes.
Yeah.
But he wasn't talking to Joe.
But he said something that Joe would hear and change his expression.
Or that, or he just was being Joe. Yeah. I mean, I definitely don't put a lot of stock into that. I think he probably just said, "Nice to meet you," or "Hello."
Yeah.
Barron's not going to say something inappropriate.
Well, I mean, he kept looking back over there. It certainly ignited the internet. It was interesting to see.
It doesn't take.
I mean, Joe's expression went from "yay" to "oh no."
Speaking of igniting the internet, Mr. Elon Musk decided to troll everybody by doing a little.
My heart goes out to you. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to be labeled whatever.
A Nazi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Clearly not a Nazi salute, but clearly wanting it to look enough of like one to.
I think
start
Elon
the conversation.
likes the spotlight a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
This actually got me thinking on how long is it going to be before Trump is like, no. It's too much. You're getting too much attention. You're drawing attention away from me. You're out.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, because you saw the initiative that Trump took earlier last week with the AI Stargate initiative with other tech leaders, and Elon immediately
Well,
you know,
with Sam Altman,
yeah,
who Elon and Sam hate each other.
yeah, they were partners together, and Elon says once their partnership went to a for-profit model, he bugged out. I heard something on that the other day, but since then, Elon has been relatively quiet, and now who knows if he's just busy with Doge. Now that Vivek has left
To
Doge
run for governor.
of Ohio, so and apparently there was a lot of you know, a lot of drama between Elon and Vivek and the Trump team. No love lost there, apparently. So, big personalities, big agendas, big things going on, you're going to ruffle some feathers.
Yep.
That's just the way it is. When you have all these A types in a room that, are on the spectrum somewhere, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, it'll be interesting if Elon just gets focused on Doge and all the work that is there just for the pickings. That'll keep him busy enough.
It is going to take a lot of work because there's so much to unwind. I mean, it's not just an easy stroke of the pen. It's gone. I mean, a lot of this has to be, because there's going to be a ton of things challenged in the courts. So these things have to be written. Now, I will say about a lot of the executive orders that Trump has signed, a lot of them are very well written and will withstand the court test. Some of them will not.
Yeah.
Birthright citizenship, it's headed to the Supreme Court. I think,
which I think is a good thing. It's a debate worth having.
Yeah.
It's absolutely a debate worth having.
But I think that it was the most. I said this to somebody yesterday that I think Trump's first week was unprecedented.
Yes.
And probably accomplished more in a week than the next most effective president was able to do in 6 months.
Well,
maybe a year.
I mean, what a lot of people are beginning to notice, which I noticed last week, is that he has been more engaged with the press in the first week, the first day, the first two days than Biden was in his entire administration.
I mean, he sat at his desk
unbelievable
in the evening of the inauguration day, signing executive orders with doing a running press conference for a couple of hours.
Now, what do we got? Oh, this is the such and such.
And I mean, what struck me was obviously Biden could have never done that.
Never.
But Kamala couldn't have done that.
Never.
So it was just such a, I mean,
from a leadership perspective and an executive perspective, it was so refreshing.
Yeah.
Like, here's competency. Like them, loathe them, agree with them, disagree
with the press.
But this is what a competent person at the top of their game looks like.
Yeah.
They're engaging with the press. They're talking about different elements of their policy going forward. At the same time, they're signing executive orders to change or unwind things of the past.
Right. Now, backing up a little bit, going right before the inauguration, you had a flurry of pardons.
Yes.
By President Biden. And, it started with Hunter's pardon, and everyone kind of, and it was very broad, but nothing compared to the preemptive pardons that he gave to his entire family.
Yes.
Except Jill, interestingly.
Yes.
He did not include Jill on that list. He included
maybe that's what Barron said.
You forgot one.
You forgot yourself and you forgot Jill. Who knows?
And pardoning Fauci and
Dr.
the
Faustus.
January 6th committee members. There was a lot of outrage. It is outrageous, but I actually think that at the end of the day, it was good that he did that, and I'll explain why.
Okay. Then I would question whether he had the authority to give a preemptive pardon. That will be tested, I think.
You think?
I think so.
Maybe. So,
especially with Fauci when he's called before Congress, and some of these people before they're called before Congress. Now, I've heard the perspective as well is that it actually sets them up in some ways because they can't plead the fifth,
right,
when they're called, and they have to absolutely tell the truth, or
it's perjury,
or it's perjury again.
Right. So, but part of why
which is not covered.
My thinking, right? My thinking on this is that Fauci being preemptively or pardoned ahead of time proves that he engaged in the activity that we know he did.
Absolutely.
Because he didn't refuse the pardon.
Nope.
So, okay, we won that argument, period. The family...
That in and of itself is frightening and...
But it'll never happen again. That's the thing. We now know that it was true.
Yeah.
And he was a criminal. And we also know that
everything you thought you knew about COVID is a lie.
Yeah. And on the family, it's proof that the Biden family was a crime syndicate.
Absolutely.
Literally, you cannot argue otherwise. Because why else would he make the pardons and they take the pardons if they didn't involve themselves in criminal activity?
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no other explanation. So, as nuts as it is, he decided, I'm going to admit we were involved in crimes. That's fine.
No,
because I'm out.
You're absolutely correct.
And so I actually am happy that they finally faced the truth that it was a criminal syndicate and that the Biden family was corrupt from beginning to end.
Oh, for 50 years, for sure.
Yeah.
Since he's been in public office.
And then we moved
that's a great point, that it absolutely proves beyond a reasonable doubt that they were involved in crimes, that they committed these crimes in the betterment of themselves. And more is going to come out. That's the thing. This is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what we're going to see over the next several months.
Here's the other thing. Will we? I don't know. I mean, in my mind, they were involved in crimes. Okay. We know that. Let's move on.
I don't think I don't think James Comer is going to move on. I don't think so. I think he's going to call members of the Biden family to testify as it relates to their relationship with China and Ukraine. I just do.
End? To what end? What's the point?
Yeah, to follow the money. But
to what point? I mean,
I understand what you're saying. I just don't think.
I think it's a waste of time. We already know they're criminals.
Okay. So do you think that in that end that Rand Paul won't call Dr. Fauci to testify? I think he will. I think he wants to get him in a perjury trap again.
Well, maybe, but again, kind of a waste of time.
Yeah.
I mean, we run the government now, as we meaning Republicans.
I understand.
All three. It's a trifecta. Let's run it. Let's move forward. Let's put the criminal past in the past. And just march forward.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I think some people up on Capitol Hill want some scalps. I think they're going to try to get them.
And what I'm saying is that that's stupid.
Okay,
it's just dumb. We got to move forward. So anyway, and you know,
well,
and here's why. Here's why. Because the next day, Trump pardoned 1,500 J6 defendants who stormed the Capitol, many of which were bad actors.
Yes.
So if Comer wants to go after the Biden family, you can damn well bet that if Democrats take control after the next election, they're going to go right back after those 1,500 J6ers and make their life miserable again.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no point. It's done. It's over. Let's move on.
Yeah. Why do you think Trump did that after saying very consistently that he would look at, the violent versus the nonviolent offender? Do you think that the Biden pardons and the way those were conducted right at the end?
Yes.
He just said, well, screw you.
He didn't say screw you. He said, fuck it. Let's do them all.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
There's inside reporting that's what happened.
Yeah.
Because there was concern about how long it was taking to go through
to vet all that
the individuals,
and with Pam Bondi not at justice yet, that was going to take even longer.
And I still think that they could have separated the ones who were convicted of assaulting police officers.
Yes,
and set that aside and let everyone else go. But I think the Biden pardons tipped it over, and he just said, "Fuck it." Let's go. All of them.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like at the time, because they were very consistent leading up to it. They were going to try to distinguish between the violent and the nonviolent, and between grandma who's just wandering the halls.
Well, and some people who had never actually done it. There were people who were harassed and sentenced that never actually entered the Capitol. They were on Capitol grounds, but they actually didn't go inside. That to me is
there was a lot of inconsistencies in terms of who was prosecuted, who wasn't, and
right.
who and they've tried. I think you're right. I think trying to dive into that and get in the weeds on that, and plus you had a lot of people still awaiting trial.
Yeah.
So just do it all at once.
Yeah. So those were kind of the controversial.
It was a flurry of a day.
It was a flurry of a day, and it continues. He's still doing stuff on almost a daily basis. He's in the midst of he's got a goal to meet with every Republican member of the House.
That's
maybe
tremendous.
Of every member of Congress.
Individually?
Yeah. So, because that's one of the things that was said about Biden was that, I mean, you think about this. I don't know if you Google J.D. Vance Oval Office entrance.
Oh, yes, I know where you're going.
J.D. Vance was a sitting United States senator, had been there for 18 months, had never been to the White House, had never been to the Oval Office.
Yeah.
So he saw the Oval Office for the first time as the vice president of the United States. That's pretty amazing. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think the much of Biden's diminished mental state throughout his presidency, that will be the book that will keep being written because more truth will come out.
Yeah.
In terms of who was running the government and how a lot of the government was conducted when he was barely able to function.
Yeah.
And I guess kudos to the New York Times for joining the party on that, because they wrote a pretty extensive article on that.
They did write a big
where the Wall Street Journal was really the only one calling attention to it for the better part of 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, New York Times late to the party, but definitely now that it's over is like, oh, well, we can jump in. They've got a lot, because they are very well sourced.
Of course.
So they have a lot that they can say, and then they did. So I commend the New York Times article about the Biden demise or decline and who was shielding him.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
Yeah.
It's amazing we still have a country.
Well, it does go to show that this is a resilient country. That a lot of crap can happen.
You've said it before, like we will survive.
Yeah.
Our republic endures despite,
and
anything that were to happen.
I'm feeling like it's going to thrive.
Well, I think, the meme that's going around that we've already had carried the torch on for several weeks is the F around and find out election.
Yeah.
And you are seeing it on every level right now.
Well, you look at the Justice Department.
I think the aspect of, or the word of the week is deterrence. And I think that is establishing deterrence both internationally and domestically in a way that has not been done in many, many years. And the fact that now Trump, I think this assessment is right on as well, that he's had 4 years to think about what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's not waiting.
No.
He's not letting anybody, question his authority or anything. He's just doing it.
Yeah.
That's why I think, on the 14th, the question of the 14th Amendment and birthright citizenship, he's like, listen, when somebody is here on a travel visa and, has a child, we don't grant them citizenship. So why should we be granting citizenship to people who are here illegally, who, for the purpose of, coming here illegal or having children? He's using that same logic, and it's a fight worth having in the courts. So he's been ready for that. And you can go down the line, what's happening in terms of immigration right now with the raids, the ICE raids. I think they're willing to put in, to put a mayor or a sheriff in jail to make an example of them. If they get in their way.
They might.
Oh, I think it might be coming. And what's interesting is a lot of those mayors and governors are backing off very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Once they're shown the statute and they're shown the breadth of the federal authority, they're like, yeah, you've been sold a bill of goods for the last several years, and here's the breadth of our authority, and here's what we're going to do.
Well, and it is, because it's a federal issue, so the federal,
well, especially when dealing with criminals.
Yeah.
And that's gonna take them a long time. And then they found 75,000 children.
Yeah.
Out of the 300,000.
Out of 300,000 that were lost.
And I saw it begs the question, what was the Biden administration doing?
Well,
they were facilitating
They were willfully ignoring a problem.
He didn't pardon Alejandro Mayorkas, did he?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think if there's any place for Pam Bondi to go,
well,
it would be there.
That might be.
Well, she still hasn't been voted on yet.
Right, but Pete Hegseth is done.
By this hair of his chinny chin chin.
J.D. Vance, the deciding vote.
And Marco Rubio, unanimous.
99-0.
I said in our podcast several weeks ago, after I listened to that entire hearing, I have not done that in so long, and it was a masterclass.
Yeah, he's
total masterclass.
He's extremely well qualified.
Yeah,
probably the most qualified Secretary of State that I can think of.
Yeah, in quite some time,
very long time.
And this week is a eventful week in terms of confirmations.
Yes, there are a number. So we've got Commerce is done, SecDef, Secretary of State,
Transportation.
So now we have. Well, is Transportation done?
Well, he hasn't been voted on yet, but he'll be voted on this week.
Okay, so Transportation, Justice Department.
Yeah. Sean Duffy for Transportation, he'll be voted on this week. But everyone's been passed out of committee.
And
Bondi has. Everyone's been passed out of committee.
But Tulsi hasn't.
Tulsi has her
RFK
hearing this week.
Hearings this week, right?
RFK has 2 hearings, and then Kash Patel. That's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, watch those.
Who do you think they try to torpedo out of those 3?
Well,
I think one is not going to make it through. Possibly. With the 3 vote margin that you need.
I would have said, if you'd asked me a few days ago, I would have said Tulsi. I'm now starting to wonder if it's RFK Jr.
Yeah, it seems like the entire Wall Street Journal, New York Times, everyone's going after RFK.
Yeah, I think that, and here's why. RFK Jr. can do significantly more damage to the Democrat establishment infrastructure than Tulsi Gabbard can from national intelligence.
Interesting perspective.
There's much more that he can upset of the entrenched norms of, the HHS is just a massive department.
Yeah,
which reach into so many things. Its breadth is so large that he is a much greater danger to the swamp than Tulsi.
Yeah. Well, he's a greater danger to pharma and all the different things that I mean, some of the biggest lies of COVID, going back to Dr. Faustus.
Right.
He what's interesting about people who are against his nomination, especially the lead editorial in the Wall Street Journal over the weekend or yesterday, he wrote a book called The Real Anthony Fauci, and Anthony Fauci never sued RFK Jr. for anything that happened.
Right.
I mean, and I've read the book, and it is unbelievable, the stuff that Fauci, the things that Fauci did.
Yeah.
To both enrich himself and make us sicker.
Right.
And Fauci never sued him. He never questioned. It's footnoted to the hilt.
Yeah.
So you have to ask yourself, what are they trying to stop? I think they're trying to stop the upheaval of the health system, which benefits the very few.
Right. Right.
And the argument that the food that we eat is so heavily processed, so heavily injected with everything under the sun, and is actually making us more obese and sicker. I think there's a sound argument to that. Yeah. And that's what they want to stop.
Well, and not only is it really is the beginning of a golden era in America, because if you look at what Trump has done in the last, what has it been, 10 days, 8 days, it's been a remarkable run.
It's been unbelievable,
and there's a lot more to happen.
He's been like the Tasmanian devil.
And so you're going to see a lot of things. And the left is in complete disarray. I mean, Gary Peters from Michigan has announced he's not running for re-election in 2026. All of a sudden, the Michigan Senate seat becomes very much in play.
Sure.
And you know, I think Republicans probably gain a seat or two in the next election. The House, a little bit less certain, not totally certain about, but we get a couple good candidates in a couple good
Yeah,
places.
I think the way the House stays Republican is they deliver.
Yeah.
If they either, they hang together.
Right.
And
that's going to be a challenge.
That is really, really going to be a challenge with the Freedom Caucus and everything else that goes with that.
Speaking of Freedom Caucus, Republican House members, Andy Biggs has announced for governor here in Arizona. That's very interesting.
That is very interesting.
So that's going to set up, a contested primary in his district. Yet to be seen who's all going to jump in.
Yeah.
But, it certainly someone pretty conservative is going to come out of that.
Oh, completely.
And they'll have that seat because that's a very, very, probably the second most Republican, maybe third most Republican district in the state.
Yeah.
But I think Biggs running for governor is just a continuation of, because you see that, who's the other one? Oh, Marsha Blackburn is going to run for governor of Tennessee. So you see these House and Senate members who say, hey, Trump's elected. I'm in the kind of seat that's going to stay Republican. I'm going to go try to do, something to continue the Trump agenda at a state level
and get things done.
Yeah.
There's also this feeling that I'm not really, at some point in your time in the Senate or in the House, I've done all I can do.
Right.
And so what's next for me?
Right.
There's also an interesting governor's race happening this year in Virginia.
Yeah.
Where Winston Sears is leading now.
So she's the lieutenant governor.
She's the lieutenant governor, African American, very, very conservative.
Former Marine? Former military of some sort.
Former military. And then Glenn Youngkin, do you think he runs for Senate?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's usually the pathway in Virginia. You serve in the governorship, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to run for Senate.
Because under Virginia, it's a one-term thing.
Run for Senate,
and
then you can be there a long time.
Yeah.
Virginia is not blue; it's very purple, so you can go. And now it seems to be turning red.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it did, and Youngkin could make a play for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
that would be a good thing.
Done some great things for Virginia. So
tremendous,
man. It's so interesting because last year was so chaotic. The election, all of the upheaval. We're like, oh, it can't get any crazier. And then it was a rout. Trump won in a landslide, and popular vote wins the Senate, keeps the House.
It's so funny how people, as Biden was leaving and the way he was leaving, which, with the pardons and just sort of and trying to lock down parts of the government to keep it Trump proof and everything. And what Trump never said much. He just let it go.
Yeah.
And was so not like him in the past.
Right.
And he just let it go and had his people get him ready and to watch the whirlwind. Even like last Friday, his engagement in North Carolina and California,
right,
all the same day, and basically calling everybody to account, calling FEMA into account, calling for either the elimination or the, complete overhaul of FEMA because of the disaster that it's been for decades.
Yeah.
To see the action, rather than just words has been, I think, just invigorating.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's both, just competency. It's nice to see.
Yeah.
You forgot what it looked like.
Well, and I mean, this will be,
and we're not even like, people are like, well, he hasn't done this. He hasn't. It's been a week. It doesn't even have his It doesn't even have his cabinet yet.
Yeah. I mean, State of the Union is going to be early March. A lot's going to happen between now and then. He's going to have a lot to talk about, and he's going to have a lot to be talking about what's coming. So, folks, tune in every episode because there's got to be something new.
Oh yeah, we're just doing that as a one-off because we haven't been able to visit, and it's been a really incredible week.
Yeah,
it's a great week to be an American.
Absolutely.
Seeing the president of Colombia, who's just a complete total leftist weirdo whack job, cave within 30 minutes.
I mean, almost
Was
immediately,
just
right?
beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a great point to make, that this, when you said Trump was like, I'm just going to go, I'm not going to ask for permission, that kind of thing. He is asserting himself, and he's doing exactly what he promised he would do.
That was a case where you had 80, illegals, criminals heading down to Colombia in handcuffs, and everything had been prearranged. They're going to land in Colombia, and then the president of Colombia decides we're not going to take them.
Even though he would have been taking flights for years.
Yes, been taking flights for years. He wanted to make a statement because of whatever political pressure that he had.
Well, I think
in his country,
he didn't like the fact that they used a military plane and not a commercial plane, which
they were criminals.
Absurd. Yeah, exactly.
They were criminals.
You don't want to put them in a plane with other civilians.
With other civilians, that's insane. Right. And it begs the question, how would Biden and Harris have dealt with that? They would have just taken the plane back.
Yeah.
They would have just said, oh, we tried. We need to respect the sovereignty. Or something crazy like that.
It would have been
Trump. Trump is on the golf course, ladies and gentlemen. He's on the golf course. He hears about this, basically tweets out or Truth Socials out. Okay, well, here's what's going to happen: 25% tariffs, and if there's not a resolution quickly, 50% tariffs within a week. And all your visas are canceled. You won't have all your people won't have any access to the American market. Your economy will be done within a week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad it got resolved, because
you love your coffee.
I love my coffee. I love my coffee.
There is that, but of course it's going to be resolved. And then all of a sudden, it's ignited all these different leftist leaders within Latin America thinking, well, what are we going to do?
Right.
Because if he comes down hard on us, and what are we going to do with our economies? How will our economies function without the American marketplace?
America's back, baby.
Because what's happening is all these criminals are being rounded up. They're going to continue to be rounded up, put on planes, in handcuffs, and taken down to their countries of origin.
Yeah, as they should.
As they should. Absolutely.
All right. Well, there'll be more to talk about. Yep, more to talk about as
Here
we move along.
Go.
So strap in, folks.
It's Trump's world. We're just living in it.
That's true right now, for sure. All right. Thanks everybody.
For listening. God bless.
Take care.